purpose and insynced it up. Because we say to the Astros, the Orioles, and the Atlanta Braves yesterday, bye, bye, bye. It was fun. I hope you enjoyed your champagne celebration at the end of the regular season, but your season now, after two postseason games in 2 days, it is now over. 3-2-1 Cancun. I don't know where you go in baseball, but they are 3-2-1 Cancun, and they are now done like dinner. So, the Tigers advance on. They're going to be facing the Guardians. That's the team in Cleveland. Used to have a different name. They're the Guardians now. And the Royals have moved on, and they shall be facing the evil empire that is the New York Yankees. The Padres will be facing Game 3 coming up later today. 4 o'clock first pitch on ESPN between the Mets and the Brewers. Winner of that will face the Phillies. So now that my team is out, I'm now trying to find a rooting interest. And normally when that happens in the postseason, I then root for chaos. So let's start with who I do not want to win. Yankees, Dodgers, Apex 1. Please do not let either of these teams win the World Series. For a couple of reasons. One, I mean, the Yankees have won enough. They have won enough. And two, when the Yankees and or the Dodgers ultimately, if they do, lose, boy, that's going to be fun to see. I've said this before. Dallas Cowboy fan tears are maybe the most satisfying of sports fan tears. I think Yankees might be. Who's second? Is it Lakers or Yankees on that list in terms of most satisfying? Just watching them in their silly playoff getup, and then having to see them walk back to their car, knowing that everything has been ruined. Dallas Cowboys, it's the best. They do it every single year. There's like B-roll of Dallas Cowboy fans just sitting there, almost in tears, grown men, knowing that you're going to get close a lot, but you're never going to get back to where you were in the 90s. I think the Yankees probably second on that list. The Yankees, I do not want to win. Dodgers, I do not want to win. I would like to see the Phillies get bounced. That's because of personal preference, because of the AL East. And then after that, as long as the Mets don't win it, I'm kind of cool with everybody else. What would be the best story? Let's run through the candidates, shall we? We've got elections coming up. Let's run through the candidates, and I'll give some background, and then we will determine, of all the teams left in the regular season, in the postseason, what would be the best story? Now let's start with, I don't want the Mets to win, but let's start with the Mets. You go back to April, the Mets came out very slow, and Mets fans and everybody wanted everybody fired. Fire everybody. Because that's what they do in New York and in Boston and in LA, is if you are not right out of the gate winning every game in 162 games, they want everybody fired. Now, I do not like the Mets because, again, I am a Braves fan, and as a Braves fan, I cannot like the Mets. That being said, I do like how the roster of the New York Mets have basically told the fans and all the hot takers to be like, yeah, shove it. We're just fine. That being said, I want the Brewers to win tonight. Brewers, I do not believe have won a world championship. So the Brewers are one of a handful of teams that are in a championship drought. They've won 6 divisional titles. They've won 1 American League pennant. And I believe that was 1982. I believe that was Harvey's Wallbangers was the nickname of that team. But the Milwaukee Brewers have not won a championship. You've got the Tigers and the Guardians. Brenden, Tigers last won the World Championship. They call it the World Series. Tigers last won the World Series 1984. far before you were born, I was 5 years old. They're facing off against the Cleveland Guardians, formerly a different name. Cleveland Guardians' last World Series championship, 1948. They've won 2 World Series titles, one in 1920, one in 1948. So fairly big drought there. Kansas City has 1 World Series championship. They have won that World Series championship. What was that? 13 or 14 when Kansas City won the World Championship. I had it pulled up, and then, well, I screwed up because I closed out the 2015. There you go. I mean, crying out loud, it was 9 years ago. Then you got the Dodgers, who won the COVID championship. You got the Yankees, who won it back in 2009 with Jeter and A-Rod. And then you've got the Padres, who, again, have never won a World Series title. So you've got Brewers, Padres, no championship in Milwaukee or in San Diego. Guardians haven't had it since 1948, and you've got the Tigers since 1984. And the Royals did win it 9 years ago, but they have 1 World Championship in their team's history. Brenden, of all those teams, I know who I want to see win the world title. Who do you want to win the world title now that the Orioles are bounced? What's the best story for you?
Probably the Tigers.
You going Tigers?
Be honest, I'm as equally happy to see the Astros get defeated.
Mm-hmm.
So quiet down, Houston. Yeah, real tired of seeing them consistently good every year. Maybe this one will break apart.
See, that's the biggest problem with the Houston Astros cheating scandal. That irks me a little bit.
They never had to go away.
Well, that, and they didn't have to cheat. They were good. You didn't have to do it. It's like Barry Bonds. Like, dude, you didn't have to take steroids. You were already good. If you would have just played, yeah, you wouldn't have broken the home run record, and you might not have hit 73 in a season, but you'd be sitting in Cooperstown right now every single summer as a member of the Hall of Fame. You didn't have to cheat. The Astros were built well. It was an incredible story of taking a team that was bloated and contracts, I'm talking about, not the actual players, but full of bloated contracts, bad deals, and they came in, wiped it clean, built it from ripped it to the studs, built it from the ground up, and built a world championship caliber team. They didn't have to cheat. I think that's the most frustrating thing for me. They didn't have to cheat.
No, they didn't. I'll say this, too. Kind of forgot. Got to pull for my Beavers. And Stephen Kwan, all-star outfielder for the Guardians. So,
okay.
Yeah, I'll be pulling for the Guardians, man.
Stephen Kwan. What year was he? Was he
on the national championship team in 18?
In 18.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. All-star outfielder, man. He's good. So, yeah, I'll probably pull for the Guardians. They're playing the Tigers. So, either one of those two teams I'd like to see go far. Padres would be decent, like you said. I do not want to see the Evil Empire win a title, but as I told Justin earlier, this could be the year the Yankees get it done.
If we get Yankees-Dodgers in the World Series, it's going to be unbearable. It is going to be unbearable.
We'll just have to focus on college football. We'll just pretend it doesn't exist. Easy.
I'm not torn on this, but there is a part of the Dodgers that irks me, and I'll tell you why. When I was growing up, the Braves, believe it or not, were in the National League West. Figure that one out. They were in the National League West. They were in the same division as the Giants and the Dodgers when I was growing up. And the reason for that is because they used to be the Milwaukee Braves, and the Midwest was actually more West Coast back in the day, and they had less West Coast teams, and then they put teams in Seattle and Denver and Phoenix and all these other places. But, the Midwest was fairly West Coast, and they used to be the Milwaukee Braves, and then they moved them to Atlanta, but they stayed in the same division. So I have hated the Dodgers almost my entire baseball fandom. I have disliked the Dodgers. Nothing about the Dodgers I've liked. That being said, I really like Shohei Ohtani. I can't help but not like that guy. He is such a breath of fresh air in baseball. And he plays for the Dodgers, and he did it and he took the money, which, again, I don't blame him. When you're worth nearly $1 billion, which is where he is, his baseball worth is very close to $700 million. When you have that kind of scratch, yeah, you take the biggest offer that you possibly can, and I don't blame him. But I hated the Dodgers. I've always hated the Dodgers, and it is so hard because I like Shohei. I really do. The other thing is, I kind of like Mookie Betts too. There's some likable players on the Dodgers. I just hate them. I do. The uniforms are magic. Uniforms have a detriment on the other side as well. And then I'm rooting against the Yankees just because it's fun. I'm pulling for the Padres, not just because they beat my Braves, but I think the Padres, again, fun team, young. They seem to have a good time, which is why I love postseason baseball. There's nothing worse than like watching baseball and you get like, the fun haters out there. Give me a young, cocky, almost kind of dumb, bat flipping, hair flipping, do a Euro crossover step as they cross home plate. Give me that in the postseason. It's so much more fun to watch than the stiff, serious. I understand like the mentality, but it's not as fun to watch. I think I'm pulling for the Padres. If you could give me a Padres Tigers matchup, that'd be kind of fun. I'm with you on the Guardians too. Like Padres Guardians, that's what like when 2016 happened, which is one of the best World Series we've had, when the Cubs and the then Cleveland Indians, now they're the Cleveland Guardians, and you're like, well, the Cubs haven't made a World Series since 1945, I believe. The Guardians hadn't won one since 1948. You had two humongous droughts, and you got fan bases that were so close you could taste it. Right? The Dodgers won the COVID championship a couple years ago. The Yankees have won, I think they're up to 27 now. I think they're up to 27. The Phillies won a handful of years ago with Jimmy Rollins. And I don't like the Mets. So that being, there you go. Give me a Phillies or a Brewers going up against either Tigers, Guardians, Kansas City. Basically all the big markets, just get them out. Just get them right out. Now, again, this is going to be one of these tests of is Rob Manfred really pulling the strings? It's funny, like baseball never gets that accusation. You always get it in basketball, which again, as I've said, is there's like zero zilch nada evidence to that whatsoever. I was like, oh, the NBA is rigged. They want this team to. It's like, okay, really, NBA's rigged, huh? How many championships have the Knicks won? That's a huge market. Last time I checked, Knicks.
Zion would be a Nick if it was rigged.
Isn't it funny how like people who want to do the conspiracy theory thing, and then like you throw other evidence, you're like, wow. It's like, yeah. If they wanted to rig it, Zion would have been a New York Knick. Or how about this? The New York Knicks would never get eliminated in the postseason ever if it was rigged that way. And last I checked, the biggest media market in the country, one of the biggest media markets in the world. Yeah, they haven't made an NBA Finals in a long time. Haven't won a championship since the 70s. Oh, the NFL is rigged. They don't want us to win. When was the last time the Cowboys were in the Super Bowl? Because I'll tell you right now, if the NFL was rigged, the Cowboys would be playing the Steelers every year in the Super Bowl. Or some version of that. And the Cowboys haven't been to the Super Bowl since the 90s. Baseball doesn't get the rigged MLB is rigged. Because it kind of already is a little bit, just because you can pay the players whatever you want. There's no salary cap. Yankees Dodgers would be a disaster. After that, personal preference. See, that's the problem. Like if the Mets win tonight, Then I got Mets, Phillies, and I don't like either of those teams. I would root for rainouts, I guess, is what I would root for. Can can you have neither of those teams ultimately find a way to win? But I think
that's how a lot of Beaver fans feel about Friday at Autzen Stadium.
oh, you want just it's scheduled to have some rain, so there might be that. But
I had a Beaver fan tell me,
you want like
who are
just
you
the
rooting
lights to
for
go
on
out?
Friday? They go, a meteor.
Really?
Yeah, and I was like, wow.
Well, that's not very nice. You don't want me to get hit by a meteor, do you?
Oh, you'd probably be fine, but
You think
hey,
so?
I
You
didn't
think
say it.
Well, I mean, I am in the cover, so
I didn't
No
say
big
it, but I think that should tell you how some Beaver fans definitely it's tough. Your boys can be pulling for the U of the O, but I don't know if many other Beaver fans will be joining me, Justin. Hard to say. Might just be like, can both teams lose? Can they tie? Like,
yeah.
can we get a tie?
Yeah,
Like,
I don't blame either. I don't blame either way.
can we get a tie like the old days, man? Remember when we could tie in college football? You were 7-1-1. Yeah, the ties.
What a mess.
Settle for a tie, man. Yeah.
They used to have they would
couldn't
settle
even
for
imagine.
ties to try to win national championship games.
I know. I can't believe that. Like you think that now, Justin.
I
Like
want to say it was not.
like how would you feel if in a couple
Was it
weeks
95? Not was the
see when they
first.
got rid of it?
It was the 90s because Oregon played in the first overtime game in college football. Oregon, Fresno State. I want to say
The fact that you could tie up until the year I was born is
it's 90, so it's 96.
Mind-boggling.
Oregon, Fresno State was, I believe, the first overtime game in college football history. Fact check me on that one, but I'm fairly certain.
It was August 31st.
Yep,
So it very well could have been.
It was Labor Day weekend.
They don't quote it as that, but it was a overtime game, yes.
Who kicked the game-winning field goal?
Don't have a box score for that one.
Good thing I know.
Yeah, I'm like, don't have the box score for that one, unfortunately. 1996, Justin, I don't know if they were uploading those box scores online.
You don't think so?
Not necessarily at the top.
Internet wasn't quite a thing back then?
Not at the top of their priority list, probably at the time.
I believe Oregon's kicker was, his name was Matt Belden, and then
Okay.
Matt Belden, I believe, pulled a quadricep, and going into overtime, Josh Bidwell, the punter, would go on to kick the game-winning field goal. Josh Bidwell from Douglas High School, baby.
Oh, there you go.
He's
Yeah.
a Douglas Trojan. He was the greatest football player that Douglas High School had ever put out. Tell some Samoan guy went to USC, and what a legacy. What a legacy we
Yeah, that
have.
was a weird year for y'all. You won 3 straight,
Dude.
lost 5 straight, then won 3 straight.
Yeah.
Like, that was a year, man. That's an interesting year. I love when that happens. It's like, wins,
there's
wins, loss, wins, wins.
There's a real bad loss to Washington State in there.
Yeah.
There's a bad one to Washington State in there. I remember.
55-45 up on the Palouse.
Oh, man.
Yeah. 1996, man.
That was Mike Price just chucking. All that, they just would not stop. 96, good season. No bowl game, though.
But yeah, all that to
No
say.
bowl game. Can you imagine a
Interesting.
team with a winning record not going to a bowl game?
Was that back? That was
They
back
picked
in-
Cal over Oregon, I believe.
So that's back when not every team was guaranteed to go to
You
a bowl
were
game
not.
if you got 6 wins.
No. Then 97, Keely Smith would come along and
But yeah, let's see.
and take down Air Force in the Vegas Bowl, baby.
Yeah, Oregon, Justin, has not tied a game since. Do you know that? Curious.
I do not know. Is it the Toilet Bowl?
I think it must be.
Toilet
yes.
Bowl 0-0?
Yes.
Boom.
1983 was the last time Oregon tied. I would guess
Nailed it.
that might be the last time Oregon State did too. But that's what a great. And, imagine, Justin, you go to Ohio State in 2 weeks. Imagine walking away with a tie. How you would feel.
Yeah.
Just like you're like, hey guys, we tied the Buckeyes. Cool. Just I couldn't even imagine how fans left the stadium feeling.
All right, coming up next, we've got some more college football to dive into as we go on campus. It's a Friday game for Oregon, a familiar foe, as Brenden mentioned. Beaver fans might be just hate watching this one on Friday night. We'll dive into that and some other interesting games and news and notes in college football world as we go on campus. Next, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, if anything on this particular program, we strive for accuracy. And I can't believe I completely forgot about the 1985 World Series that the Royals won. Because I said, oh, the Royals, they won it in 15. It's their only championship. Yeah, they won in 85. George Brett. But tip of the cap, because our listening audience, they keep me honest, and I appreciate it. I really do. By the way, at Justin Myers 541, if I say something and it is dumb and it is factually wrong, hit me up. I'll be the first to be like, yep, missed that one. I used to be like so proud. When I was in middle school and high school, I used to be able to run it all the way back, like World Series champions all the way back. And then at some point, my brain just kind of turned to mush and years just start squishing together. But like when I was 14, I'd be like, yeah, I can tell you who won every World Series. Can't really do that anymore. But tip of the cap to I believe it was Mike on X or Twitter. We're still doing this X or Twitter thing. We're still sticking with that, Elon.
I find it. I mean, I've called it both. I mean, it just is what it is now.
I'm doing the whole X or Twitter. Anyways, all right. So we got that. There was apparently a YouTube thing. Brendan's got that taken care of. A couple of tech things. Hit a couple. Did you do the start it over and like shut it down?
Oh yeah, we had a
over?
hard reset, man. It was not fun, but got it back to where we are.
How is it that is still the best remedy for crazy technological things? Like it was a storyline in Jurassic Park, which is like, hey, just shut it off and turn it back on.
Hold on to your butts.
And then it's like now it's like, hey, it's 2024. We can still do that.
30-some years later. Yeah, no, that happened to me yesterday, Justin. I jumped on to do my podcast with the fellas, and my headphones were not working. And for about 5 minutes, couldn't figure out why. And just decided, okay, we're going to restart the computer. And la-di-da, boop, 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 ready to go. So, yeah, technology's great when it works.
Do you like the Bluetooth headphones more than the cord? I kind of like. There's something about a cord I like. Now you can't buy them. You can't buy them anymore. I've tried because radio is like the last industry where you still need a cord. You can, but like they're hard to find.
You can.
I think I went into Fred Meyer like a couple of months ago before we weren't supposed to go to Fred Meyer.
Walmart.
I went into Fred Meyer and I was like, yeah, I need some headphones. They're like, here you go. And it's like, oh, and I'm like, no, I need one with a cord. And the person looked at me like, are you a psychopath?
Yeah.
No, we don't do cords anymore.
Yeah, Walmart still does. I only know because I had to invest a pair when I moved over to your side of the glass. A couple times I've hosted in the last couple months. But yeah, no, in general, Justin, no, I hate cords. I wish I could bring in my AirPods and have them connect to this system. But, it is what it is. It's old school. I get it. But yeah, no, I'm definitely more of a cord-free guy.
All right. We have got a full slate of college football games coming up. Oregon, of course, kicking off tomorrow night against Michigan State down at Autzen Stadium. Oregon, heavy favorite, 23.5, 24, depending on kind of where you get your point spreads. Is Jonathan Smith and the Michigan State Spartans. Goodness gracious. See, I told you my brain was mush. Like, these are the things that happen. The Michigan State Spartans come to town. But there's a handful of other interesting games of note. Games to keep an eye on as we go on campus. Here we go. All right. Also, at 6 o'clock on Friday night, I mentioned it before, UNLV is a team to be paying attention to because after they lost their quarterback due to a contractual dispute, which that's new in college football, they played Fresno State, put 59 points on them. Put 59 points on Fresno State, and teams seemed to rally around their new quarterback. I think he was also a transfer. And now they've got Syracuse. So of the games left for UNLV, and again, this is why I bring it up, because this could have playoff implications. UNLV currently favored by less than a touchdown against Syracuse. Syracuse is 3-1. They're not bad. They're not terrible. But if UNLV wins this game, that sets up a crazy matchup with both Oregon State and Boise State down the road where you might see some playoff implications with UNLV. So that game on Friday night, very interesting. Another playoff game to pay attention to. Bright and early Saturday morning. Missouri is playing Texas A&M. All right. Here's why I bring this up. Missouri was blessed by the schedule gods. Schedule gods being the SEC. Now, Missouri is good. I don't know if they are great. But they're playing Texas A&M, who's also ranked 25th. There's a tie for the 25th ranking. They go to Kyle Field. If Missouri beats Texas A&M, Brenden, they go to UMass, Auburn at home. Auburn's a mess. To Alabama, that's a loss. Oklahoma at home, that's a toss-up, I think. Oklahoma's playing better, but you get them in Missouri. To South Carolina, to Mississippi State, home against Arkansas. Missouri gets past Texas A&M. Missouri's staring down 11-1. And you know what 11-1 gets you? That gets you a trip to Atlanta for the SEC championship.
Most likely, Eli Drinkwitz going to Florida. So
yeah, that's going to happen too.
Throw that out there as well.
You over the Jed Fish to Florida thing?
Not a lot of buzz with that. I don't think Jed's looking to move.
He moves every 2 years. Is that why? Because he's only moved for this 1 year.
I know,
he moves every 2 years.
That's been very quiet. Maybe they're not interested. I don't know. But, Justin, is there anybody more hot in college football than Drinkwitz right now?
And, well, if you've learned anything, I would agree, yes. Well, I mean,
that can be got.
I mean, Kalen DeBoer, but he's got his dream job.
No, that's what I mean. Like who can be got, right? I think a lot of schools could still outbid Missouri.
That is a good question. Let's rank hot, because Florida's going to be looking for somebody, right? You got Drinkwitz. Fish's star has kind of faded. Plus, he's not leaving Washington after a year.
But still a UF
believe.
alum. So
He's a Florida alum. You got to throw that in there because Florida has a knack of taking coaches from the Pacific Northwest after 1 year. It's happened before. And when you look at Jed Fish, he moves around.
He does.
Your guy at UNLV.
Barry Odom was at Missouri, got fired for Eli Drinkwitz. Now
you can't retread him at Florida.
Well, the question is, he's kind of having his career revival because I think he kind of got a raw deal at Missouri and didn't, and now he's like, hey, guys, look what I can do at UNLV. So Barry Odom will be a retread, and that's why when I go back to the conversation I had with Adam Rittenberg a couple weeks ago when he's like, yeah, Barry Odom's not going to be there. So Mountain West is cute. They can think they can give UNLV a big payout and everything, Justin. Wait till a big time. Like Purdue.
Yeah.
Why would Purdue not go hire Barry Odom at this point?
It's a good point.
Right? Or
is there
someone like that who could just stack cash?
Is there a chance that there is like a Brian Kelly situation there at Florida where there's a coach who's in a spot and you're like, man, this is a really good spot, who then goes like, yeah, but that's Florida.
Yeah, let's circle back to that.
And that's the SEC. We may talk about that coming up in hour number 2. We got some more NFL stuff. We got stuff we saw on the internet as well. More Rip City Mornings coming your way next. 620 Rip City Radio.
on a Thursday. Brendan Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings and MLB wildcard action. KC swept Baltimore with a 2-0 win. Detroit eliminated the Astros with a 5-2 win. And the Padres took down the Braves 5-4. Milwaukee was the lone team to force a Game 3, winning 5-3 against the Mets. They will play a winner-take-all game at 4 o'clock this afternoon. Coming up, hour 2, we got Make or Miss. We got stuff we saw on the internet and more. Hour 3, Mike Parker talks some Beavs, Colorado State, some Gonzaga to the Pac-12. We'll get it all from Mike in hour 3. You got Rip City Mornings.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, everybody. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic Thursday. If you are new to the program, hey, we appreciate it. Hopefully you were recommended by a friend, and thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. And if you like what you hear, well, maybe tell somebody else. And if you are a returning customer, of course, we appreciate any bit of time that you give us during your valuable day. Whether it's just 5 minutes on the way to grab your morning coffee or whether you are hanging out with us for the full 3 hours, we appreciate each and every one of you, as I say, stacking the bricks every single day. The momentum is building. The foundation continues to go up, up, and up, and we are building, and we are only able to do that because all of you hang out with us. And I know if I don't say it enough, I am unbelievably appreciative and grateful that anybody would spend any bit of time listening to me jabber all day long. So we've got Make or Miss coming up in 20 minutes. We got stuff we saw on the internet. We were talking last segment about Florida. And Florida has a job opening, and it's going to be interesting to see where that – or they don't have a job opening yet. I shouldn't say that. Have they fired – what's his name yet?
Not yet.
I guess I got to quit saying Florida has a job opening because they don't. Technically, but feel like that's on the way. Then, because our computers are listening to us, or just sometimes just serendipity, Bruce Feldman from The Athletic posted an article, and The Athletic polls 50 people working in college football, from head coaches to assistants to GMs, because that's a new thing now. Teams have GMs, to determine which are the top 5 jobs in college football. And I don't disagree with their list. I'm fascinated by how different the list is today than maybe it would have been 10 years ago. So this is the list. And by the way, they've got Oregon as the number 6 job on the list. I only have to 6 because I don't have an athletic subscription, so I just saw the top 5. But they got Alabama, Ohio State, Texas, Georgia, LSU. Now, I would argue, as nuts as it sounds, Brenden, I don't believe that Georgia is a top 5 job in college football. They are maybe the best program in college football right now. Alabama may have something to say about that. But I don't believe it's a top 5 job. I believe Kirby Smart is that good of a coach. I believe Kirby Smart, with the right support system, could go to a handful of places and build them the way he has built Georgia. I'm not saying it's a bad job, but if you would have asked this question 7 years ago, Georgia's nowhere close on this list. When I think of the best jobs in college football, I think of turnkey. You walk in 1 year to recruit, next year to compete. Turnkey jobs. And I don't know that Georgia was one of them, or maybe Kirby Smart turned them into one. Who knows? But I'm not trying to put down Georgia. I'm saying that's how good of a coach Kirby Smart is. Because with Mark Richt, before that, Georgia was not a turnkey job. Georgia was not a, hey, just add water, get the right. Now, maybe NIL's changed that. Maybe a couple of national titles have changed that. And you can show a couple of banners and show a couple of NFL rosters, and the defensive tackles just start flocking to Athens. I don't know if it's a top 5 job. Maybe Kirby Smart turned it into one. Much like Nick Saban
turned Alabama into the best job in college football, and Kalen DeBoer seems to be taking the Ferrari by the horns, and they're still Bama, baby. Ohio State, Texas, LSU. I think those three are always going to be tops of any list based upon, as we've said before, and maybe Georgia deserves to be in there because of this criteria. You walk outside of campus in Baton Rouge, in Austin, or in Columbus, and not even with a very good arm, a mediocre arm, and you throw a rock, you're going to hit a guy that could probably play in the NFL. You know what I mean? Whether you're in Central Texas, whether you are in Louisiana, or whether you are in football-obsessed Ohio, you throw a rock, you're going to probably find somebody that's good enough to play in the NFL.
It's true.
You know what I mean? Those are the best places to recruit. Now, they've got Oregon as the sixth best job in college football, which is what I want to talk about. Obviously, I'm biased. To me, the only reason Oregon is in this discussion is NIL and Nike. It's the only reason they are there. I think the athletic department has done a good job of putting football first. I think Rob Mullins, the athletic director down in Eugene, has done a good job of building up everything. But you're not able to build unless, that check gets signed by old Uncle Phil. Now, all these places have NIL budgets and all these places have money, and that's a huge deal. I've always said the toughest part in building Oregon into a national power is twofold. One is you don't have a rich history, which that kind of matters. Oregon football at the highest level, as much as I love my beloved 1994 team, Oregon football at the highest level didn't start until the year 2000. The year 2000 is when Oregon football was legitimately in the discussion to win a national title. As compared to Texas and Ohio State and Alabama and LSU and all of these teams that go back to the 90s and the 80s and the 70s and the 60s, right? You don't have that at Oregon. Oregon's tech money, Oregon's new money. But the biggest thing that I think is holding Oregon back, because Oregon's got, I think, what all of these places have, except what I just said. And I say this as a proud Oregonian and a proud high school athlete of the great state of Oregon. And we got our guys for sure every once in a while. But you want to win, you got to go to California. You got to go to Texas. You got to go to Vegas. You got to go, heck, you got to go to Georgia and Florida. You got to recruit the backyards of those guys. And it's tough because there's still a human element to recruiting. I don't care how much NIL money you're getting. Some guys show up. You're in Eugene. You're a gajillion miles from home. Have you ever been down to the Deep South? I have. I love it. But you go from there to Eugene? Willamette Valley's beautiful. It's a different world. Oregon's got to deal with homesickness that I don't think a lot of places do. You have to deal with a culture shock that I don't think a lot of places have to deal with. And the fact that you do not have a backyard, like Oregon's backyard is LA. You want to win, you got to win LA first.
There's definitely a lot more of a athlete population in Washington. You're seeing more and more guys come out of the Seattle area.
That's true.
For sure. But yeah, no, you're right, because again, I cover recruiting for a job. It's what I do. I don't mean to disrespect any of the high school kids in Oregon, but there's about 4 to 5 that can play Power 4 football every year.
Yes. And that's just playing Power 4.
Give or take.
That's not even saying at an All-American level, which you're going to need a handful of those guys to win at the highest level. So attempting to be unbiased, Brenden. Attempting. And I attempt as well, and I fail on a handful of attempts. You got Oregon as the number 6 job in the country? Everything, like...
They're top 10 for me.
They're top 10?
Yeah, they're top 10 for me. Because the resources you have, and it's fallen a little bit because now you're in the Big Ten, and it's like your competition's going to be more. So, I mean, before, I think Oregon kind of had the Pac-12 on lockdown, like as far as like being able to dominate and win it each year. Maybe you had a Utah or a USC come up, but no, I'd say top 10 pretty comfortably. I
Okay,
mean,
who in the Big Ten do you think is Oregon's biggest threat in the next 5 years that's not named Ohio State? Who I don't. No offense to Sharon Moore at Michigan, but I think that was a Harbaugh build at Michigan.
well, it won't
I
be
don't know
Jonathan.
if Michigan's a big threat to Oregon in the next 5 years. Of all the teams in the newly rebuilt Big Ten, teams not named Ohio State, who's Oregon's biggest threat?
Penn State.
Is-
Yeah, not Michigan State. Penn State.
It's not Michigan State.
It
no.
won't be Michigan State. I can almost guarantee that. So,
I
lot
would say
of
Penn
turnovers.
State. I would say
definitely not.
Lincoln Riley's got to be so close to just getting it figured out at USC.
I'd say
you know
USC
what I mean?
to Penn State. I like James Franklin. I like Lincoln Riley. Those are two good coaches.
Watch out for Nebraska.
Them too.
You got to watch out. In the next 5 years, we might be talking very, very different about Nebraska. And I think Jed Fish is going to get things like you look at what he inherited at Washington.
Okay, so
Like the fact that they're even competing, like they lost so much at Washington. I think Jed Fish will get it figured out. Now the key is, will he stay?
So let me ask
Does
you
he
this,
stick around at Washington?
because I've seen his name thrown out there too. Compared to the rest of their peers, Washington State and Oregon State they have to be two of the best group of 5 jobs out there, right? Because I've seen Jake Dickert's name thrown out there a little bit now too, and I'm just wondering, Justin, like, you know, like I said, Trent Bray's interesting because he's kind of like almost loyal to a fault. So I don't think Beaver fans got to worry about that too much. But I'm just curious where like it seems to me that it's very clear. It's like Oregon State, Washington State, a huge gap.
Yeah.
Then Boise, San Diego State, so on and so forth. Maybe
Is
just
it
for
bigger?
football. For football, I mean. You don't think so?
Boise, though.
But you have markedly less resources than
Yeah, I got you. I
than
hear what you're saying.
Corvallis and
Yeah.
Pullman. Like, I would say even Pullman. Like, you got the brand. I think it's a bigger brand than Oregon State, Washington State. But I don't know if you got the money and the NIL resources and the.
I think there's more money in Pullman than there is in Corvallis. If
Think so?
if I'm being honest, I don't know it for a fact.
I'd like to know that. I'd like to know. No, that'd be a good question.
Because I think Washington State has a bigger hold over Seattle than Oregon State has over Portland. Do you know what I mean? There's a lot of Cougs in Seattle, where I don't know if there's a ton of Beaver fans up around here. Maybe there are. They all curse my name when I'm on the air, but yeah, it's just interesting they got Oregon as the number 6 job, and I think the way you can, I agree that it's a top 10 job, because how do you go from Kelly to Helfrich to Cristobal? Sorry, Willie, I'm skipping over you. To then Lanning, or forget that. Brooks, Bellotti, Kelly, Helfrich, Cristobal. You know what all 5 of them have in common? Conference championship and a major bowl win. Conference championship and a major bowl win. Chip Kelly won the Rose Bowl. Mark Helfrich won the Rose Bowl. Mario Cristobal won the Rose Bowl. Bellotti won the Fiesta Bowl, which should have been the Rose Bowl, but the BCS screwed him, and Rich Brooks got him there. That's not being built by a coach. That's something. His name's Phil. All right. Coming up, it is time for Make or Miss. That's next, 620 Rip City Radio. 1 hour from now, our good friend Mike Parker is going to be joining the show. Curious how the wedding went. We went to a wedding over the weekend. Seemed to match up with the Beavers bye week, but more importantly, getting ready for Colorado State. Started at 14. It's what, 12 and a half is what you were saying, Brenden?
11.
Down to 11. What time's that kickoff?
3.
3.
3 or 3.
Those
3 or 3:30.
That CW contract might have given you guys the best kickoffs you've had in decades.
Decades. Without a doubt. They're awesome. All the home games are absolutely fantastic this year.
Are they already all set? All the CW ones?
Yeah. Every home game is already set. There's one that's like a 12:30 or 4:30.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think everything's set. I don't think there might be one more night game. But even night quote at like 5:30.
Gotcha.
Right. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's helpful. Better than 8 o'clock.
Did you see? And again, I didn't realize this. So College Game Day is going to Cal. They're going to be at Cal this week. Is it Miami is at Cal?
Down in Berkeley, and I saw the
6 a.m. start West Coast kickoff 7:15.
Did you
Boy,
again?
boy,
I'm gonna
oh boy.
preface this by saying this is a joke and something I saw really funny on Twitter. So, there's always things with Miami, right, Justin? So very famously, the Catholics versus convicts.
Yes.
Okay, I'll say this is a joke. I saw it on Twitter. I did not even come up with it, but it was Cal and Miami photoshopped, and for Cal it was. You'll laugh at this, Justin. It was woke versus Coke.
There you go. Yeah, well.
And I said, that's pretty funny, man. I'll give him credit. Like, that's pretty original. Because, yeah, I mean, game day down in Berkeley, man, that is, that's choice.
First
it's
off,
going to be pretty sleepy for you guys, but maybe not.
I like Justin Wilcox. I root for Justin Wilcox. He's a 5'4" guy.
Junction City, man.
He's a Junction City Tiger. Shout out to the Tigers.
Don't know how many D1 talent comes out of there anymore.
Well, there was Josh Wilcox, and then there was Justin Wilcox.
Yeah. Outside of that, not entirely sure.
There was one other guy I forget. Junction City had a run there for a while. Like they were, and it helped that. First off, Eric Chaney. Shout out to the Chainsaw, Eric Chaney. He played at Oregon. He's a Junction City Tiger.
Yeah, on Wikipedia, the only notable alumni are Justin and Josh. So no one else must have made it really big, Justin.
Well, like I said, the Chainsaw, Eric Chaney, he was wrecking fools on kickoff team for Oregon.
That's cool, though.
Shout out to the Tigers of Junction City, being led at quarterback by Caden Schaefer. He's my buddy's kid. He's a quarterback at Junction City right now. Old number 3.
Pride of 3A, baby.
Slinging it. So I root for Justin Wilcox. Also, I'm friends with Josh Wilcox. He is a kick in the pants to hang out with, let me tell you. I love Josh Wilcox. Old Seabass, one of my favorite Oregon Ducks of all time.
Seabass, that nickname?
Yeah, so Josh had a stint there for a while where he was in Portland wrestling. So if you know anything about Josh Wilcox, I remember after the Oregon Ducks beat Oregon State in 1994 there at then Parker Stadium to clinch the Pac-10 championship and to go to the Rose Bowl. I remember vividly because we were driving home. We went to Eugene to watch the game at my aunt and cousin's house. Then we were driving home, listening to postgame. It was the greatest postgame show I ever listened to. And little did I know I'd one day be hosting that postgame show. But I remember they were interviewing all these players, and they were like, "Hey, Josh Wilcox, you're a freshman from Junction City. Now you're going to the Rose Bowl. Like, is this all your dreams coming true?" And he's like, "Yeah, that, and maybe one day being in WrestleMania." And so he was a wrestling guy, and he had all the tight ends. He nicknamed them the Four Horsemen. Shout out to Ric Flair and Arn Anderson, Four Horsemen. And then he had a stint where he was trained Portland wrestling with Matt Bourne. Put him through like a wrestling, and then he was part of Portland wrestling, and I believe his nickname was Seabass, old Josh Seabass Wilcox.
Yeah, because
he won the Portland wrestling title in Lapine, and then defended the title down at the Douglas County Fairgrounds.
I respect
Brenden.
I respect it, but I would have to ask Josh and make sure it's not taken from the only real.
Oh, it's 100% taken from Cam Neely and Dumb and Dumber. It was
Yep.
it was sampled from Dumb and Dumber.
Okay, got you. Because again, it's just Seabass. Yeah, making 4 Boilermakers over here. No, exactly, man. So I'm just saying, Seabass. There's only one Seabass, man, and he. That's what I said. How good? How I said? How much less does that movie hold without like those scenes? Right? Like he is a crucial antagonist to that film.
Seabass?
Yeah.
Part of it, and then of course there's I forget his name, but the guy.
Oh, the guy that takes
The gas man.
that takes
How
the
do they
heart
know
pills.
I have gas?
Rat poison. Yeah. Oh yes. I forget his name too. But yes.
that guy who they with the peppers, you want an atomic pepper?
Yep. Yeah.
You want some ketchup
Just
and
a
mustard?
joke,
That
man.
helped for us.
Check, please.
All right, we could do this for another
We could.
two
Anyway,
and a
back
half
to your point.
hours. We can't. We got to focus it. All that being said, College Game Day is going to Cal.
It's an interesting choice. Cal is a very sleepy kickoff and has been.
It's
since,
7:15 kickoff too.
Like,
It's
Cal-
the kickoff so late.
Like I just don't know if Cal's had any energy on that campus since Jeff Tedford's been there.
That's what I'm
For
saying.
lack of better
Since
terms.
Aaron Rodgers was their quarterback. Now, maybe the allure of College Game Day is enough because they've never been there before, right? It's one of those things where it's like, hey, never been here before, first ever, but I don't know if we're going to see a raucous crowd there at Berkeley. I don't know. We'll see. All that being said is we've got Make or Miss. That's right now, and it is a raucous crowd because it's Brenden and I. Let's go.
All right, firing up make or miss. Well, Pac-12 really has no other football options but Sac State at this point.
Okay. Let's start with this. We've managed to get an hour and 26 into this show and haven't mentioned the Pac-12 rebuild and its bumpy road that it's hit. You know how, like, on the old school, like now that we have do you go Apple Maps or do you go Google Maps?
Apple.
Yeah, I'm an Apple Maps guy myself. My wife is a Google Maps. We battle over it sometimes. But like, remember when Waze first came out? And it's like, Waze, and this will get you there 5 minutes faster. And you're like, I am driving through an abandoned alley. Do you know what and it would like, because Waze couldn't comprehend it first. I think it's figured it out now with AI. But it'd be like, or they would put you on some gravel road. And you're like, that feels like where the Pac-12 has kind of gone, where it was like, we're on a good path. And like, turn left here. Whoa, this is a bumpier road than we anticipated. But they got Gonzaga. They have hired a consulting firm. And apparently this consulting firm is going to run simulations as to the potential other football programs they could add, what value they would add, and I guess through some algorithm and through some computer program, and then spit out the type of money that they could get on a TV deal. Now, I don't know how accurate it's going to be, but there's a company that does it, and they said until they run through multiple simulations to give themselves more options, I think this is a way to go to schools and be like, here's the number we're likely going to get, as opposed to taking the word of some economics professor at Arizona State, which completely derailed the conference a year and a half ago. Guys, I think we can get 40. You're an idiot, and you ruined the Pac-10. I think it might be okay. Have you seen the renderings of Sac State's new football stadium?
It looks pretty cool.
It looks cool. So here's what Sac State is. Sac State feels very Boise State 20 years ago to me. Like, they are willing to kind of put in the money, invest in it, and get them, because Boise State used to be an FCS team. Back then they called it 1AA. And then they invested in football, hired the right coaches, and they've got what's the owner of the Kings?
Oh, Vivek Randiveer.
He's invested a ton of money in this. Have you seen that?
Yeah, he said that the men's women's teams can use the Golden One Center.
So barring a scheduling conflict, you got the Golden One Center for men's and women's basketball. That's huge. Could you imagine like a Gonzaga game or, you know what I mean? They're at the Golden One Center. If they're like one or two in the country. He's invested a ton of money to build what looks to be an incredible football stadium. Do you play the long game here and hope that Sacramento State has enough financial backing that they might actually add some value down the road?
I don't think you have a choice.
I don't think you do either.
At this point, I don't think you have a choice unless you can get Memphis or Tulane back
All
to
right.
the table with Gonzaga being in the basketball conference now.
Can I give you a hot
Which I
take?
heard is back on the table, kind of.
Hot take? Sac State's a better option than UTEP. I believe.
Well, I didn't say UTEP.
I did.
Oh.
I just because the Mountain West just got UTEP, right? And this is an arms race. Let's not deny it. Like this is a contest. The Mountain West just got UTEP, and UTEP was kind of one of the last. Texas State seemed to be the last one standing. They're going back to the Fun Belt, but I'm saying if Sac State's going to put up some money, and they're going to build a football stadium, and they're going to let men's and women's basketball play at an NBA arena, and you're on the West Coast, you're right on I-5, that's a better option than Texas El Paso, I think. Call me crazy.
So they have gone to 4 bowl games since 2005.
UTEP?
UTEP.
Yeah.
So not exactly a riveting program.
No,
Never have been, never probably will be.
probably not.
But again, you also have a massively big city in El Paso and a massively big stadium.
You got the Sun Bowl.
So that's something.
But I guess if you're building a basketball conference, though, which the Pac-12's kind of doing, maybe you invest in Sac State. I don't know.
It's a tricky.
In 5 years, because Sac State's had a couple of good football coaches, right?
Well, Troy Taylor parlayed that into the Stanford job.
Yeah. In 5 years, is Sac State going to be a better football program than UTEP? I think they are. If they keep investing all this money they keep talking about. And they're talking about also adding NIL funds.
Supposedly they've raised $34 million in NIL funds. You know how many schools can't raise that at the
That's
division?
so much money for an
Where do you get
FCS
that?
team and
Where do you-
maybe soon to be Group of 5 team. That is so much money.
Where do you get that?
What's his name? The Kings guy.
I think Vivek gave a big portion of
I
that.
saw it. That's what I saw. The internet's lied to me before.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't see.
But
if
I
it was-
believe this guy's all in with. I think they're just trying to build up Sacramento as a sports market, and I think this guy sees that if Sacramento State gets into a Pac-12 and you get a buzz around, that's going to help the Kings. They'll light that beam a couple of times. What's Sacramento State's mascot?
the Hornets.
The Hornets. Do they light the beam, you think?
I just don't know how I feel about adding in a team that is probably the worst lost in Reser Stadium,
Yeah,
Oregon State football history.
Yeah. You gotta have to come to terms with that. You thought,
Because 2011, again, Justin, I've come to peace with the fact that the Beavers lost to the Super Bowl MVP and Vernon Adams
yeah,
Jr.
yeah. And that's different.
Yeah, I live.
I
with
couldn't
that.
tell you one player on that Sac State team.
They went 3-9 that year. One of those 3 wins was Oregon State.
Terrible.
So that's
You know what? Here's what it is.
it hurts so bad, man.
I don't know if you've ever experienced this. I have because, as I mentioned, when I was in my 20s, I partied too much. There would be a time like you would go out or I would go out, shouldn't say anybody else, have 1 or 2 or 5 too many, make an idiot of myself, and then like wake up and be like, whoa, never going to see them again. And then like a couple weeks down the road, they look at you like, oh, were you the crazy? I'm like, oh, man, that's like the Beavs. It's like, fired Gary Anderson. We're back on solid ground. Going to make a bowl game this year. We've been making bowl games the last couple years. Never going to have see Sac State again. What? They might be in our conference. We might have to play them. Oh, man, that's tough. That's some rom-com meet cute stuff. Never going to see that person ever again.
Meat cute. God, I hate that term. I really
You
do.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Like,
love it.
It's not like mean or I've always just been like, it's like an awkward word to like. There's just words that like you say that like are just like I don't know. Like I like for instance, I had this buddy who hated the word moist.
Well, that's like a lot of people. I think that's like 15% of the population.
Okay, so
That's
like,
for that, and I don't
it doesn't bother me
necessarily
either. But like, I don't know. I hear meat cute. It's like I don't know, man. It just like my brain goes to like literally a Q-tip falling in meat. Like literally, that's
Okay.
where my brain goes to.
I
Justin.
never thought of it that way.
It's like a Q-tip
well,
with
now
like.
that's all I'm ever going to think about.
See,
now.
I
Now
ruined
you
it for
ruined
you.
it for me.
I ruined
All
it.
right, we got another one.
Yeah, let's get to.
But no, in all seriousness, let me ask you this: 5 years from now, if this money is $35 million in NIL to Sac State, are they going to have a better athletic department than Texas State or UTEP?
UTEP without a doubt.
Yeah.
Texas State is in the beautiful Austin suburb of San Marcos.
But you're also in the big old shadow of Texas.
Yeah, no,
Longhorns, hook 'em.
I only know this because my buddy and I needed to get gas when we were driving to San Antonio. So we got off and we're checking out San Marcos and saw, TMU University. Shout out Friday Night Lights. And Texas State, they've got some impressive facilities for where they are. Put it this way. Their stadium looks like a mini cathedral, almost kind of a thing. That being said, though, it just doesn't seem like they're itching the Pac-12 or scratching the Pac-12's itch, Justin, so to speak.
I got you.
So
I don't know. I'm on Sac State teams here.
I guess. We'll see. We'll see.
I like the fact that maybe it's because Oregon bought their way into big time college football, and now Sac State wants to buy their way into at least medium level college football. I'm all for it. Let's get more money in it. Let's get some rich guys spending some dumb money. I love it. All right, what's next?
All right, let's load it up here. JJ Redick is about ready to learn what it's like to be a substitute teacher.
Okay, so early reports out of Lakers training camp, and there's always early reports out of Lakers training camp. Is it Redick's kind of a pushover? That's what you told me?
It just kind of sounds like Braun and AD going to be running things. Not like we didn't know that to begin with.
Yeah, you kind of took the job knowing that. So LeBron James said he wanted a DJ at practice. Also, by the way, this all started when LeBron said, "Hey, JJ, draft my son," and they did. But he said he wants a DJ at practice, and I think we had the question like, LeBron has that kind of pull because LeBron said, "Yeah, it's already a done deal. I'm done. I'm not asking. I'm telling." Now that's pretty common practice in the NFL, but that's like 80-some guys with practice squad, and you're outside, and a lot of stuff's moving. Basketball practice, it's going to be awkward for the DJ, isn't it? Like, JJ Redick's like, "Hey, turn off GZ. I'm trying to work on some inbound sets here." And he's just, and it's like, "All right, can we can we get the volume down a little bit?" But yeah, the fact that LeBron's basically, this is a done deal.
To me, it kind of seems like,
I think
they were not a coach away. They were a trade away.
We'll find out. It's going to be interesting. Okay, LeBron obviously has that kind of pull. LeBron runs the league. He got his kid drafted who scored 4 points in college, right? LeBron runs the league. At least he runs the Lakers. I believe Steph would have that kind of pull to essentially say, "This is how we're running practice. Try me on it." Does Giannis have that kind of pull? If Giannis went to Milwaukee and said, "Yeah, I have this this Greek underground club DJ that is going to be at practice from here on out, and we're just going to do that," I think Giannis does.
Yeah, that's probably the last one, though. Like, there are some coaches
Okay,
who
what
would
if
never allow that.
Wemby came in?
No, not with Pop.
I don't know.
He is too stubborn. Like, this is the man who won't even
I
give
think if
media
it came
stuff.
down to Pop versus Wemby, I don't think it's going to. But if it did, I think Pop loses.
Well, I think we know who loses, but that doesn't make it right.
All right. I'm not saying it made it right. I'm just saying I think Wemby's got that pull. I think he's got some serious heat. But yeah, way to go, LeBron. Just keep running the organization. All right, coming up, we've got some stuff we saw on the internet. Also, we're going to be talking to Mike Parker in hour number 3. Don't forget about Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday. That's right, each and every Tuesday on Rip City Drive from 3 to 6 with Chad and Dwight. Hey, I was on there with them yesterday. They were obsessed about the pumpkins on my front porch. But Also, they're obsessed about giving away tickets every week. On Tuesdays from 3 to 6, your chance to win a Trailblazer ticket for this upcoming season. Also, single game tickets can be purchased right now at trailblazers.com. It's Trailblazer Ticket Tuesday all season long on Rip City Radio. Stuff we saw on the internet next, 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, the Trailblazers are back and ready to hit the hardwood. That's right. The season starts sooner than you think, and we want to celebrate the upcoming 2024/25 season with the free Fan Fest presented by Daimler Trucks North America. Experience Blazer fandom at the Moda Center with food. Oh, I love food. Games, even better, and giveaways. Free stuff, and it's a bunch of fun for everyone. That is Saturday, October the 5th at 2 p.m. That is this weekend. Get your tickets for free at trailblazers.com/fanfest. All right. It is time for stuff we saw on the internet. Class action lawsuit, $8.8 million settlement has been reached in a lawsuit against Breyer's Ice Cream, Brenden. Now, I have been on the front lines of what is an imaginary Oregon ice cream war because I am Team Umpqua, and obviously my dairy nemesis, which is a terrific columnist and heck of a nice guy, but Tillamook loyalist, Bill Oram at the Oregonian, as I am I'm an Umpqua dairy loyalist myself. But I'll tell you what, don't really go after the national brand stuff unless it's Ben and Jerry's, which, by the way, Ben and Jerry's still hits. You Ben and Jerry's. You love that. You got that sweet tooth. You go Ben and Jerry's.
Not a big ice cream person unless it's homemade.
I'd
prefer candy or some other kind of donuts or sweets.
Okay. Well, let's pretend you are an ice cream guy.
I'll eat it, but it's not something that like I go to the store and I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta have a scoop kind of a thing.
All right. Well, apparently,
and I'd be plain. I'd go for like vanilla or caramel.
Well, I'm glad you brought up vanilla. So Breyers, which
Breyers or Dryers?
Breyers.
Okay.
With a BR, because there's also Dryers.
Yes.
It's also a thing. That's why you just buy Umpqua and you're good.
It's true. If I was going to buy, that's where I would go.
Breyers had been, over the last 8 years, marketing their 100% grade A natural vanilla ice cream. Much like in the Seinfeld episode where they figured out that the fat-free frozen yogurt actually had fat in it, so Kramer took it to the lab to have it. Say, it's all fat-free. How do we keep gaining weight? It's like, it's got fat in it. Somebody took it to the lab, Brenden, and figured out that, it's been falsely advertised as natural vanilla because it contained non-vanilla plant flavors. It's been made with imitation vanilla, which a lot of stuff is. There's like the pure vanilla extract, and then there's like the imitation vanilla, which you take your pick. But apparently, there is now a nearly $9 million settlement. So if you can prove, I don't know if you have to prove it all that much, if you have over the last 8 years bought a pint or two or a half gallon or whatever of the Breyers natural vanilla, you're entitled to some compensation. You can be part of the class action lawsuit. They got to pay $9 million for false advertising. How desperate do you have to be to take like the Breyers to the lab? To be like, you said it was 100% natural vanilla, and turns out you're wrong.
Just makes you wonder what else they're hiding from us.
What are they
hiding?
What else is going? I don't know if I want to know. Do you know what I mean?
Me neither.
I don't know if I want to know. Like the creamers, like the half and half creamers, not the half and half you buy in the refrigerator section in the back of the supermarket, but I'm talking about when you go to a restaurant and there is the creamer and it says half and half on it, but it's been sitting out in the day, like at room temperature for like a week and a half, and it hasn't curdled yet. Like I don't know if I want to know what's in that. You know what I mean? Do you think like cereals? Because like so like, oh, part of a balanced breakfast? Like, yeah, no, you're not. You're not part of a balanced breakfast. So you're not a big ice cream guy, huh?
Yeah, I'm kind of like I said, if it's homemade, absolutely. But for the most part, like, I'd rather have like a milkshake.
You make homemade ice cream? When's the last time you made homemade ice cream?
Oh, I don't make it.
Oh, I'm just asking. I don't know. You look at me like I should be churning ice cream out on the back porch.
No, it's been a family tradition for a very long time. So been a couple years now, but grew up with it for a very long time.
Sometimes you make me shake my head sometimes. It's like, oh, hey, let's talk ranch. Yeah, if you don't make it yourself, you're lazy. Your fettuccine sauce? Nope. Got to make it. But you'll get Wendy's breakfast though.
I mean, a little bit. I mean, it's I mean, like I said, it's just like there are other sweets I guess I'd rather always have. I'd rather have a milkshake. I'd rather have cookies. I'd rather have.
But isn't a milkshake just ice cream in just in different form? I mean, I guess
I'd rather drink it than.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I'd rather drink it, I guess.
Straight vanilla milkshake, or you go like stuff, or you go stuff in it, like.
I like to put a little bit of caramel in there, but that's about it.
But
like,
just you want just a
strawberry. I like strawberry. Strawberry's good. As you know, I'm kind of not the biggest chocolate fan, so I'm kind of out on chocolate for the most part. Other than like a Wendy's Frosty is like the one exception I'll make.
Is Wendy's Frosty a milkshake or is it a Frosty?
Well, it's not an ice cream, is it?
It's like
so I don't know.
You can't really determine what it is.
No,
it's a Frosty is what it is.
Exactly. It's like what they used to say about like was it Dairy Queen and their Arctic freezes back in the day? Same kind of thing, man, where it's like, it's not quite a slushy. But,
yeah.
Or Arctic Rush, I think they were called, something like that. But yeah, like same kind of thing. Like you can't really describe what it is, but yeah, I would say. But yeah, I would like if someone said, "Here's a milk, like scoop ice cream out of a thing, or have a milkshake." Milkshake 10 times out of 10.
Trying to figure out, there was a thing at Dairy Queen that, like you said, was kind of a slushy, but had a different. What was the name of it?
Wasn't a Mr. Misty, was it?
That's what it is. It was a Mr.
I can hear my dad's voice yelling at me right now through the radio.
That's what it was. It was a Mr. Misty.
He used to tell us those stories.
That.
I'm sure that text will be coming in shortly.
Between a Mr. Misty and a dilly bar, like 1980.
Now, see, I need a dilly bar.
1987 DQ was hopping.
See, dilly bar is different because I can kind of eat it. I don't have to scoop it and all that and pull it out of a tub. And I can just grab it, take off that wrapping paper, and go.
So not an ice cream guy, but you know what? A milkshake or a dilly bar.
Cherry dilly bar. The best.
Did you ever get the dip cone?
Oh, yeah.
You probably got the cherry dip cone, didn't you?
I got them all back in the day. Again, that's just a little amount of chocolate that I'd be like, all right, I'm good with it. Right? Because all underneath, it's not chocolate. Now, you do chocolate dipped with chocolate ice cream. Couldn't do that. But
that's too much.
Yeah, chocolate dipped with vanilla ice cream, that's cool.
Dude, I love dip cones back in the day. The dip cones. And then the Mr. Misty. And then they came up with the Mr. Misty float, where they would take the Mr. Misty and then they would give you just a little hit. It's kind of the precursor to the dirty soda. Because you would get the Mr. Misty, and then they would put a little hit of soft serve on top of that bad boy. The Mr. Misty float was that was a next level thing. All right, but if you have natural vanilla from Breyers, you might get $5.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's crazy.
I'll tell you who would never false advertise about their flavors. That would be the great folks at the Umpqua Dairy. They would never do that. Also, you know who would never falsely advertise anything? Mike Parker. He's the voice of the Beavs. He joins us coming up in hour number 3 with a ton of other stuff next, 620 Rip City Radio.
8 a.m. on a Thursday. Brendan Slaughter with you for Rip City Mornings and MLB wildcard action. A few teams swept and finished their series and moved on, with Kansas City taking Baltimore 2-1, Detroit eliminating the Astros 5-2, and the Padres over the Braves 5-4. Milwaukee was the lone team to force a Game 3, winning 5-3 against the Mets. That game is at 4 o'clock today before we officially get into full postseason baseball swing. Coming up in about 20 minutes, we're going to catch up with Mike Parker, talk some Pac-12, adding Gonzaga, talk some Beavers, Colorado State. Got final hour, Rip City Mornings on a Thursday.
Hey, welcome back to Rip City Mornings, hour number 3. Hopefully you are all having a fantastic Thursday. We're having a good time here. If you are new to the program, hey, thanks for joining us. If you like what you hear, tell a friend. If you're not a fan, you just keep that to yourself. That's cool. Also, if you are a returning customer, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Whether it's just for a smidge of time, how much is a smidge? I don't know. You determine that. Or whether you are 3 hours, 5 days a week, which that's a lot of me in your ears, but I appreciate it. For anybody that hangs out with us and helps us here, because we have a ton of fun each and every morning. Obviously, Mike Parker is going to be joining us in 20 minutes as the Beavs look to improve to 4-1 in what is an interesting season for them, a transitional season, rebuilding the Pac-12 as they are playing against the Mountain West, even though they're playing against Colorado State, who is, I know that the coaches and the players don't kind of maybe bring some of the animosity of the new conferences and the breaking up that is going on, but it is kind of interesting that you've got Colorado State and they're a Mountain West team, but they're going to be a Pac-12 team. And when they do get to the Pac-12, regardless of who else is going to be there, most of these players are going to be gone, whether they transfer, graduate, or whatever, because it's 2 more years from now. So it's a fascinating scenario that is unfolding, and Oregon State being led by Trent Bray, who was kind of thrust into this situation in a very unique way. But Brenden brought this up yesterday, and I think it is worth noting because of all of the surrounding drama with the Pac-12 conference and with the Mountain West conference and with realignment and NIL and everything else. Looking back at Oregon State's history, Trent Bray may be, by record, and again, don't want to put the cart before the horse, but he is kind of on pace, may be the most successful first-year coach that Oregon State has had since World War II. I mean,
Ever. He's in
maybe ever. Maybe ever. So let's have a fun history lesson, shall we? Because I went back and looked. So let's start with Tommy Prothro. Tommy Prothro was Oregon State's head coach from 1955 to 1960. Well, no, yes, 1964. He then left and went to UCLA. I wonder what the message boards were like back in 64 when Prothro went down to UCLA. But Tommy Prothro, believe it or not, one of the few Oregon State head coaches that started their career with a winning record. In 1955, he was 6-3. 6-3 as a head coach. 7-3-1. Remember, we talked about ties. And took the Beavs to the Rose Bowl. They didn't get to play in the Rose Bowl. They had to go play in North Carolina. But
different years.
It's different years?
Yeah.
My bad.
Remember, the World War II was well done by 56, Justin. Well done.
You're right.
Well done. I'm like, sorry.
You're right.
That was...
We weren't worried about the Empire of Japan in 1956?
It was the... It was what? The 41 Rose Bowls when Oregon State.
That's right.
Their one win. Then when they went to
I thought I was pulling such a nugget out, too.
Yeah.
It was like, 15 years off there, champ.
They got smacked by Iowa in that Rose Bowl game. Absolutely smacked.
So, but they ended the season top 10. They were the number 10 team in the country, and then went 8-2 the next year. Did not go to the Rose Bowl. Wonder what happened. happened in 57. Tied for first. Was that one of those? I'll bet you. Because back in the day,
No repeat rule.
yeah, you didn't get to go to the bowl game twice, and so
That's silly, but yes.
so there's going back to the 50s. Then came DeAndros.
You got to go back to the 40s, Justin, for the record.
So the record is what? Is Kippy Taylor, old Kip Taylor.
1949, man. I wonder how life was like in Corvallis, Oregon in 1949.
I'm sure there are some parts that are actually fairly similar.
But yes.
He was 7-3.
Seems to be the mark.
So 7-3 as a first-year head coach. DeAndros. DeAndros in 1965 started off 5-5 for the Beavs. They would go 1-3 in conference, which is interesting that they would only have 4 conference games. That's weird. I don't know what was going on in 65, but it
Played 4 conference games next year, too, so something must have been going on in 65, 66.
might have been a transition year or something, or maybe that's just what they did back then. And then he went 7-3 his second, but started his career 5-5. Then it gets a little lean.
A little? You're going through Oregon State's glory years, or should I say anti-glory years now, because as soon as you start naming coaches after DeAndros, you're going to get to some pretty terrible names.
Yeah, so I believe I have them all up here. We then go to Craig Fertig.
Yep.
2-10. 2-10 his first year. Would never win more than 3 games.
Oops.
Tough. It's tough out. Then we go, is Avisano next?
It is.
Avisano goes 0-11 first
He has
year.
the distinction of being the only coach to have never won a game in a season at Oregon State. Even Gary Anderson beat Portland State.
Avisano went 0-11, then went 1-10, then went 1-9-1, then went 2-8 and won 2-8-1. That one, I believe, that's Toilet Bowl. And then 2-9. Tough sled for Avisano. That one.
So that's about, let's see, 5. That's 9 years of mediocrity right there between 2 coaches.
Then they hire Dave Craigthorpe.
A little better.
Dave Craigthorpe comes in, goes 3-8. Hey, didn't finish dead last. 3-8, 3-8, 2-9, 4-6-1, 4-7-1. Then in 1990 goes 1-10 and was politely asked to leave. Then came Jerry Pettibone.
It's so funny the things we remember, Justin, from like just stories, because I remember like hearing growing up that like, you mentioned a couple Cragfort teams. There was one year I believe they were 4-6-1, and like I heard that story from family members forever was, well, they were just like it was incredible to see them go 4-6-1, because if they had if that tie had been a win and then there was one other game that was really close, it's like that's what Beaver fans were looking for. Is can you just get us to a bowl game back then?
1991, Jerry Pettibone comes in. He goes 1-10, 1-9, 4-7, 4-7, 1-10. 1996 goes 2-9, and again is asked to leave. Then it gets a little better.
That's like 40 years of losing, right?
That's really bad.
Yeah, got you. Yeah, about 40 years.
Then they hire Mike Riley, and Mike Riley comes in, and the 3-8 in 1997 wasn't exactly Mike Riley's fault, because Mike Riley had to take a team that had been running 5 years of the wishbone and try to teach them how to play West Coast football. Had to take their quarterback and make him a receiver. Sorry, Tim Alexander, you can't throw. And we don't run that wishbone anymore. And so he goes 3-8. Now
maybe they should have left Tim Alexander at quarterback and not found this little freshman from California who walked on. Funny how life works, isn't it?
It is really funny how life works.
But yeah, Riley there for just a quick cup of coffee, Justin, because
so it's 3-8, 5-6, gets hired by the San Diego Chargers.
And if that doesn't tell you 5 wins, I think I remember asking forever. I'm like, why did Mike Riley get hired after 5 wins? And people go, Brenden, you had no idea. To win 5 games at Oregon State back then basically meant you were like a coach of the gods, essentially.
Yeah.
For how bad it was. Like 5 games was a huge deal.
Maybe
for them.
because in 6 years, Jerry Pettibone won 13 games.
Yeah.
And Mike Riley got like nearly half of them in one season.
Yep.
And then he goes to the Chargers. So
He's out. I'm out.
So then Dennis Erickson comes in. He would have Derek Anderson as his quarterback. But in 1999, Dennis Erickson comes in. He goes 7-5. A 7-5 in his first year, and then of course the greatest season in Oregon State football history would be 11-1 a year later, and they would win the Fiesta Bowl. And then Mike Riley would come back, and he would go 8-5. Now we have determined, or at least you have determined, because this was your pet project, we're not counting Riley 2.0 as first-year head coach.
Erickson, the amount of talent that Erickson left him there, 2002, you're talking, you can still sell kids on, hey, we got Steven Jackson. Hey, we were in the Fiesta Bowl 2 years ago. Justin, it is not even a comparison compared to what Erickson probably walked into in 99. It was better, sure, or even what Riley dealt with in 97, that I think is indicative of what he was left.
And then Riley would go on a run from 03 to 14 where if even in down years, 5 wins, 5-6 in 05. Worst year was 2011. 3-9. That one was
Sac State, baby.
that was a Sac State year. Might
That'll
be
ruin a year
reunited
for
with
ya.
them. But would go to more bowl games than they'd ever been to. And there's the golden era of Oregon State football is essentially from 99 to 2013. And then would go 5-7 and take the job at Nebraska the next year. And Gary Anderson would come in, and Gary Anderson would go 2-10.
He gets 7 wins in 3 years.
And gets 7 wins in 3 years because he only gets credit for 6 of those losses in 2017.
Ah, yes.
But he should really get credit for all of them. And then Jonathan Smith would come in, and they went 2-10 his first year?
Yep.
So it's just to think about, like, what has been going on with Oregon State football, and we just took a trip. We went back to the 40s. I tried to extend World War II by 15 years. But
Justin thought we were still fighting in 56, man. Like, you would have thought
I knew
had it
something
over.
was off, but I was just like, oh, yeah, Oregon
You're
State, Rose Bowl. Oh, no, they got
You
crushed
were
by
like Michael Scott, where you're just like, sometimes I have a thought and it just goes on. I try to find it mid-sentence.
I really do.
It's but yeah, no, I get that. It was a long time ago, and neither one of us were here, Justin.
But
So.
it's, I mean, and we'll talk to Mike Parker about this. You're more in tune with the Beaver Believers clearly than I am. But like, they're favored by 2 touchdowns ish.
Yeah.
Favored by two scores against Colorado State. I would say outside of the Boise game and maybe the Washington State game, going to be favored the rest of the way out. Is there
Cal.
Cal?
Cal.
Yeah, Cal.
Yeah,
You
probably
still
not
got Cal
Cal.
on that schedule, don't you? But like, Trent Bray is sitting here. He's got them 3-1. They could be 4-1. That's real close to being on path to a bowl game. And when you look back at the history of this program, one guy, and that was Erickson, who obviously took over from what Riley started building, but one guy in his first year, not even Jonathan Smith, who took over and went 2-10. DeAndrews went 500, and he is revered.
And Jonathan Smith really should have went 1-11 in his first year, Justin. They had no business beating Colorado. That was the game that basically got Mike McIntyre fired, where Colorado blew like a 31-3 lead at the half. Oregon State. That was the game that Oregon State. That was their we're not losers anymore game. And you look at the springboard that happened from that, but. Yeah, that was rough, dude. I mean, you got smacked by Ohio State, Ryan Day's first ever game as head coach, to open that year.
It's a tough one to open up with.
It's kind of like Georgia, isn't it?
Tough one to open up with. Well, it's a little different, though. Like, luckily, Oregon had
Some more talent.
A little bounce back in that the rest of that season. But, yeah, like Trent Bray is doing an unbelievable job. And are the people noticing? Are the people paying attention? Or are they all too focused on the whole conference thing? It's where it's
tricky.
It's unfortunate.
Because the conference is bigging up all the news, Justin. Like, it sucks all the air out.
Exactly right. But you got a game coming up on Saturday. Mike Parker's going to be on the call, and he joins us next at 620 Rip City Radio. right, a week and a half ago, Oregon State at Reser Stadium got a nice victory over Purdue. They then get the bye week to retool and prepare for the stretch run, not the conference run, even though a couple of teams they're going to be playing on this stretch run are going to be familiar opponents heading into the future. What will that future look like? What does this season look like? And a whole bunch of other fun stuff. We are now joined by friend of the program, the voice of the Oregon State Beavers, Mike Parker, back on the big show. Good morning, Mike. How we doing?
Justin, good morning. Nice to be on with you again. It is we enter the strangest time, in my view, of our new world because it still had this first month had an air of familiarity to it, in a sense, with the FCS opponent, with the Mountain West opponent, then Oregon and Purdue. Now, Oregon unfamiliar certainly in its placement, but still, familiar names and programs. And now, in a sense, the reality of the status, the place the Beavers are in now with Washington State entering into the alliance agreement. Boy, hasn't that been a happy, wonderful alliance between the two conferences? But now we enter into that, the scheduling agreement. And it begins with Colorado State at home, and there's a trip to Nevada, then there's UNLV, Air Force, at San Jose State, Boise State's all coming. I'm glad that later in the year, back to kind of a more familiar feel, the Beavers will go to Cal and will play Washington State. And so that, I think, balances kind of at the start of the schedule and at the end, some sense of familiarity. Okay, yeah, I know these teams. I know kind of what's going on here. But to be getting Colorado State in October at home is a little unusual, to be sure.
We were talking about this last segment, Mike, and tip of the cap to super producer Brenden, as you like to call him, young Brenden, because he is a young whippersnapper, but a good sense of history, as we were talking about last segment, because with all the talk of conference realignment, with all the uncertainty of who's going to be the last team in the newly rebuilt Pac-12, you got Gonzaga, but they're not a full-time member, and is Sacramento State going to come up and all that? And if some fans are maybe focusing on that a little bit too much, Trent Bray's got this team going 3-1. They're favored in this game against Colorado State. More on that coming up in a moment. And looking back at the history, which I know you are obviously very keen to, the history of Oregon State football coaches in their first year, it hasn't always gone so well. It's been a rough sled for Oregon State football coaches in their history, going even all the way back to the 50s and the 40s. And Trent Bray at 3-1, heading into a game against Colorado State, kind of below the radar because of the distraction of the conference stuff, kind of maybe on his way to a historic run as a first-year head coach for the Beavs.
Yeah, he indeed could and should, and I believe will be 4-1 come Saturday evening when the thing wraps up and all of that. We'll be talking about a 4-1 Oregon State football team, and I think he's done an excellent job, given what you're talking about, his first year as a head coach and all of the swirling distractions, the defections, all of the things that he had to deal with when thrust into that role. I think he's doing a great job, and I'm not surprised, but I've been impressed by his demeanor, by the way he interacts, the Q&A sessions with media members and so on. He's handled it with much more almost veteran poise than I expected, being in a role like that for the first time. And you're right, at 4-1. Now, if Brenden went back, and you're talking about his young Brenden and his research ability and so on. Now, whether there's a note, if it is, it's buried or I haven't seen it. Did he just take this upon himself? Because I'm now just going through my own history with the Beavers, year 26, and I know that Dennis got out 3-0, but then lost 3 in a row before winning 4 in a row. That just comes to the top of my head. But he went 3-0, lost 3 straight, then reeled off the 4 straight wins to put the Beavers in a winning season and a bowl game, which was a remarkable achievement in his first year. But after that, I don't remember any of the subsequent coaches going 4-1 in their debut. I know I don't think Tommy Prothro went 4-1. And D. Andros, I don't think did either, because D went 5-5 in his first year. So am I right on all of that? Maybe Brenden can nod, confirm, corroborate. Was this a note, or did he go on this path of the 4-1 quest on his own?
Yeah, I went on this path,
What?
Mike, and yeah,
Okay.
it certainly seems like Trent's on the right path. Kip Taylor won 7 games and 49, but they started off 2-3.
2-3 in
Or 3 and
49.
3.
Okay. Okay, there you go. So this could be, he wins Saturday, the best start for a first-year coach ever. And not could be,
Mhm.
you're saying it's going to be. Yeah, okay. Well, good work, Brendan. I may lead with that during the broadcast.
Oh,
on
there you
Saturday.
go.
It'll come up early. It'll come up early. Thanks, Brendan.
Yeah, because I mean, boy, you kind of go back and you start running through, some of those seasons
Hmm.
and things that like you kind of had to take over. Um,
Yeah.
I'm looking now. Again, here's the question I want to ask you because we have made the determination that Mike Riley 2.0 technically
Hmm.
doesn't count because that wasn't his first year as the Oregon State head coach. Now, it was the first year as that second stint. They did start off the season. What is that? 5-1.
5-1.
They're
Yeah,
5-1,
they
but
did
we're not
go
we're not
five
counting
and
that as a
one.
first year head coach though, or first year
And
Oregon State head
yes,
coach because it's 2.0.
I agree with that. I agree with that interpretation. That's why I didn't bring Mike up. Mike didn't in '97. He didn't start out 4-1.
No.
We know that. And in 2003, yes, that Beaver team was 5-1. I remember how they got there, beating Cal with Steven Jackson running wild at Memorial Stadium in Berkeley, a 227-yard game down there, and Aaron Rodgers was like 9 for 36 for 80 yards. One of the worst games. In fact, if you talk to Aaron right now, how'd you do against the Beavers in Berkeley in '03? He might have a something stronger to say than he even says to Pat McAfee once in a while. So what I'm saying is that 5-1 team was the best start in a first-year run, but it was his second time around, so I'm with you on that. On a technicality, you're right. His first season was '97.
As much as I want to talk about this upcoming game, you mentioned something there, and obviously Oregon State running the ball incredibly effective
Mm-hmm.
this year, Mike, and a proud history of running backs at Oregon State. How awesome was Steven Jackson? That guy was so good.
Oh,
He was so
yeah,
good, Mike. And Ken Simonton. Tip of the cap to him and for everything he accomplished and is an instrumental member in Beaver football history. But I remember the first time as an Oregon fan looking at Steven Jackson, going,
Mhm.
oh boy, this is a different animal now.
Yeah, he was, and I remember Dennis when Coach Erickson recruited him, and one of the first things he said to me is, "Well, the man child's coming." when Stephen said yes, and I didn't know enough about what Stephen was doing at El Dorado High School in Vegas to fully understand until he walked onto the field. Oh my gosh, just look at him, and yeah, he was a force. And the thing too, the '03 season, yeah, he got the offensive line that year was not especially good. The O line in 2000 for Simonton was maybe the best the team's ever had. It slipped a bit in '01 when Stephen made his debut. Still pretty good in '02, but the '03 offensive line was sort of in transition. Good players got better and were developing, but that year he had to do so much in a sense on his own and got beat up in the process. And Mike Riley, as you know, as we all remember, would work if he had a featured back. He featured him.
Yeah.
None of this Anthony Hankerson, Jam Griffin splitting carry stuff. I mean, Evanson Bernard had a 42 carry game in a win in Berkeley 2 years later in 2005, 42 for 194. I mean, and he would feed the running back, Mike would. And so that year, I remember Stephen was transcendent. But had he had just a slightly better version or more experienced version up front, the numbers just would have been ridiculous.
Mike Parker, the voice of the Oregon State Beavers, joining us here on 620 Rip City Radio. The Beavs take on Colorado State. 3:30 kickoff from Reser Stadium. That's going to be kind of a conference game, I guess, Mike, because obviously this year there's the agreement, but we also know the announcement that happened a couple of weeks ago that Colorado State, with a handful of other teams, is coming to the rebuilt Pac-12. Do you think this will feel like a conference game, or is that still so far into the future that it's just not quite there yet?
I think because of the announcement, it will. Had the Pac-12 not taken the best of the Mountain West as it announced several weeks ago, then I think it, in an odd way, even though I talk about the strangeness of Colorado State coming in this time of year, in a sense, we're going to get used to it now. So I think the sense of it being a precursor to a conference battle will be evident in the stadium and amongst the fans and so on. I'm not sure I would have felt quite the same way had Colorado State joined San Diego State, Fresno State, Boise State, Utah State into the league. I think that the game takes on a different feel because of that. So yeah, I mean it'll feel, and we've got to reconcile ourselves to. I remember what Scott Barnes said when the media valuation rights, even before, when trying to piece together what the media rights deal and so on was going to be, he used the phrase publicly. He said, "It's not going to be as much as it used to be." Period. We've got to get the best possible number, but we know going in it won't be as much as it was before, and that was just an acknowledgement of the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And in a very real sense, we've got to kind of now understand, and who knows how long, 5 years long, maybe there's a super conference deal, maybe there's something that happens down the road that changes things. But for a period of time now, the level of team and teams and competition and so on that the Beavers will be playing against on a week-to-week basis is going to be different. And I guess to use Scott Barnes, not quite as much or as good as it once was and was for so long with a Power 4 status. So, I think Saturday is an important game thus for the Beavers to play well and win and show the fans that it's still good football, though, and it's still compelling football and football that the students will rally to. The student ticket allotment was gone in a half hour when made available earlier this week. The weather's going to be nice. I'm expecting a good crowd. But it's important, I think, for Beaver Nation to, in a sense, reconcile itself to this is Colorado State coming in, and they're going to come in again, and we're going to go there, and we're going to go play these teams. And that's kind of our new reality, at least for a while.
Yeah.
And so I think Saturday is important to go and perform well.
Mike Barker is going to be on the call as the Beavs take on Colorado State on Saturday. Let's talk about some football, Mike. Well, I guess maybe not so much football because Colorado State earlier in the season kind of got thrust into the spotlight for not the best reasons. It happens when you face off against Colorado and the circus that seems to, and I say that both good and bad, but the circus that seems to follow the Colorado Buffaloes. And there was, a whole thing about the quarterback in Colorado State where they doing a little too much trash talking and not that is now a sense settled down. But they're 2-2. Took a whooping by Texas, but beat UTEP. And now come into Corvallis. Beavs are double-digit faves, but like Colorado State, tough to kind of have a feel because, like you said, or like I just said, Texas is maybe the best team in the country, and then they kind of got swept up in that Colorado kind of stuff, if you will. Yeah. And I'm sure if their coaching staff maybe look back, maybe would try to nip that one in the bud. And an interesting team in the Rams because don't quite know a whole lot about them.
It's difficult to understand what and again, you hope that, I remember the last time, when the Beavers played a different team at home several weeks back, there was a sense about, how come, what's going on with them? They don't seem to, Chris Peterson talking of that team coming up from Eugene saying, there's just something off, right? I remember Peterson saying that during the week going into the Civil War game, and Peterson was saying, there's something off, something's not quite right. Well, I remember that whole rhetoric going into that about the Beavers' shot indeed could come because of that. Made me a little nervous. That, there may be something off, but it doesn't have to stay off forever. And I was nervous about what did ultimately unfold in that game. Oregon kind of found itself and was not off. They were on and won handily. I'm not saying Colorado State is thus analogous to Oregon and coming in, but they have been in their world off in terms of what their head coach, Jay Norvell, wants to do. His offensive coordinator, Jay calls the plays, so it's kind of a co-OC deal. But Matt Mumme is Hal Mumme's son, and Hal Mumme, along with the late great Mike Leach, sort of invented this whole air raid scheme that everybody uses to some extent at all levels, and they're not really airing it out particularly well yet. Now, part of that has been they get their 1,000-yard receiver back 2 straight years for Torrey Horton over 1,000, and he's back from hamstring issues and is expected to be able to play at full speed and will be a challenge thus in the pass game. But in the meantime, they, like the Beavers, have relied pretty heavily on the run. So it's difficult to tell. Even in that Texas blowout, they had a running back rush for over 100 yards. They've had a different 100-yard running back recently, too. So they've been going to the ground game and having decent results there, but ultimately their mindset is to throw it and throw it a lot. And whether they've been off, whether they find their way to get things back on Saturday, I think bears watching because their quarterback's talented. He maybe ran his mouth too much, and Shedeur Sanders certainly told him so after the Rocky Mountain Showdown. And the Rams did kind of lay an egg on that. There's no doubt the biggest crowd in the history of that new stadium in Fort Collins, big buildup and anticipation, and things did not go well. And so that's kind of, I think, it's kind of put a cast over the season thus far for the Rams, and thus they feel like they got to get right and soon, and they want to start, I think, by getting back to more of their identity in the pass game Saturday against the Beavers and try to come away with what would be a big upset win here. I think they'll play better than they have up to this point because they're healthier and they do have their dynamic receiver back.
Mike Parker is going to be on the call. 3:30 kick time. Mike, I know we've talked about it before. I am. I don't know if you would call it traditional, old school, whatever you would call it. I love a 12:30 kick. 12:30 kick is my ideal time. College football on the West Coast. The 8 o'clock kick last week was that one was tough for me, for a guy that gets up early for a morning show each and every weekday. Where's your ideal? 3:30 seems like a fine time to play some football. What's your ideal kickoff time?
Now, 1 o'clock for me forever. I mean, I felt like 1 o'clock was just locked in. When I say forever, how long does forever last? Forever supposedly lasts forever, but in our world, forever can mean 7 or 8 years. But I remember times when 1 o'clock, it seemed like both schools would kick their games off at 1 o'clock, whether, down the road or at Parker. I just remember listening to Darryl and Jim Howe and Bob Grimm and others through the years, and I just would always know, well, it's 1 o'clock. I'm going to turn to the Beaver game or whatever. I mean, you know what I mean? 1 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. And television has changed everything. I mean, absolutely everything. I've actually become a little more, because we work the games. As a fan, I think 12:30, 1 o'clock is a pretty good window. But I think 3:30 for me that's my wheelhouse time. I like that. I like 3:30. 12:30 almost feels too early in terms of needing to get the machinery going so quickly and be with all the pregame shows and all the stuff to do. That can feel a little early. I'm not a big fan of the later starts, 7, 8 o'clock. No. But 3:30 to me is a nice middle road where you have time to kind of ease into the day a little bit, maybe walk around, see friends at their tailgates, interact with other members of the media who are arriving into the press box, get down to the field. 12:30 feels rushed. 7:30 is too late. I'm okay with 3:30. I think it's a pretty good middle road.
It's a beautiful time to play football. It's going to be a beautiful day down in Corvallis. 3:30 is the kickoff. Mike Parker is going to be on the call. He's got the pregame show. Brendan's coaching note may make an appearance in the pregame show, which excited for all parties involved. And Mike, thank you so much for your time. Always love chatting with you. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great call on Saturday. We'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Justin, let it be known, too, if I don't, then I'm going to have heck to pay with you next week. If I don't, A, mention it, and B, properly attribute it. So young Brenden is going to make my opening remarks in the pregame show. I go on, let's see. So, Brenden, this is an important moment, I hope, in time.
My man, Mike, appreciate you.
2:30 is when I join up on the Jimmy and Ron and Steve Priest handle the first hour on the network. So then at 2:30, when I come on and kind of scene set for the second hour in the pregame, that's when the Brenden Slaughter from Rip City Radio Note is going in. And I'm going to go back and corroborate. I'm going to have to take a look and make sure that you're right and that we all agree on Mike Riley 2.0. But if we're all sort of in agreement on it, and we will be, then that note's going in right then and there, and it may come up after he gets to 4-1. So I appreciate you doing my work for me, Brenden.
My man.
There we go. Hey,
Okay, see you guys. See
Mike,
you next week.
Mike,
See you,
have a good
Brenden.
one. There you go. Mike Parker, the voice of the Beavs. We've got the RCM mailbag. That's next, 620 Rip City Radio. Hey, who wants $1,000? I'm serious. Who wants $1,000? Well, us here at Rip City Radio, we want to give you $1,000 cash. It is cash for the sixth man. That's you. You're the sixth man. You need to listen to keywords each and every weekday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. on the 15s for your chance to win 1,000 smackaroos. That's right, 13 times a day. That's a baker's dozen. And you can get all the details at ripcityradio.com. It is cash for the sixth man. And right now, it is time for the mailbag. Here we go.
We got to start here, Justin, because I just saw this story, and this is crazy. Why is Michael Jordan suing NASCAR?
Okay.
I didn't think that was his sport.
Oh,
Since
yeah,
when
he
has
owns,
Michael
he owns a
Jordan-
NASCAR team.
Since when?
He's owned one for a while
It's been
now.
a minute? Okay.
Yeah.
I had never heard of this.
So, Michael Jordan, believe it or not,
The GOAT.
the greatest basketball player of all time, he is very much into auto racing.
I did not know that. I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
so he started in motorcycles because he used to ride motorcycles all the time, and they'd be like, Mike, will you not ride motorcycles during the season? And he's like, I'm Michael Jordan. I do whatever I want. And they're like, all right, will you please just be careful? Because they asked, like, why do you ride motorcycles? And he's like, it's the one time nobody knows who I am on the road. It's like, I got a helmet on. I'm on a motorcycle. Nobody knows who I am. Also, maybe because your Ferrari said M Air J on it, or 23 or whatever. It's like, but yeah. So he got really into motorcycles, and then he went from that into racing, and he's there in Charlotte. Like, Charlotte is the home of NASCAR, and he was right there. He's from North Carolina, obviously. Grew up in Wilmington, and he got partnership, I believe, with Denny Hamlin. And Denny Hamlin and him started 2311, which is Michael Jordan's number, and then obviously the Jordan 11s, which I'm wearing a pair of right now. 2311 Racing. Bubba Wallace was their driver, and Jordan, who is the ultimate competitor, he did this I saw a whole E60 on this. He did this with the motorcycle racing. He realized, there are certain teams that have unfair advantages because of access to equipment that not everybody gets access to. And I believe that's also what's going on with this lawsuit. I believe it is a suit over fairness and access to equipment.
That and just revenue sharing.
Yeah, and just the amount of money coming in and that whole
I just
thing.
saw that headline. I was quite surprised.
But yeah,
So I had to
he
get
owns
your
a
thought on it.
NASCAR team.
Had to get your thoughts on that. But let's go out to Larry Miller, who dropped in a mailbag question, Justin. He says, since we both taken Uber or Lyft, would you be okay with taking an electric air taxi? I need to look up what that is.
Okay. I'm assuming that means no driver. That means computer car. And I'm going to say no. I'm out. I need a person in there. Call me an old fuddy-duddy, if you will. But yeah, I'm not ready for computers to drive me around yet. Computers screw up far too much. I'm not going to be not even the beta test. I'm not going to be the alpha test for driverless cars. So
They need to.
it's a hard no for me, dog.
I need someone famous to go in there first. Oh yeah, so and so did it. Okay, I'm full. I'm
Now
chill.
I do believe that. Okay, let me ask you this. Let me switch this up on you because I'm out on drive. What would you be okay with a car that drove itself, but a human is still sitting in the driver's seat and can override? I would go into that car. If a car drove itself, but human was there and could override with a brake or something, I'd ride in that car.
Yeah, my dream would be, Justin, is if I could, when I go down to Corvallis, have my laptop in my lap and be able to work for that hour and a half.
Wouldn't that
each
be
way.
nuts? Isn't that crazy?
Change my life if it did. So it's like, you think about that, like having a driver, right?
But
Or
they do have cars that drive themselves.
they do.
I've ridden in one, It's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I saw this car, and it was changing lanes. There was a person in the driver's seat,
Yes.
and there's also a sensor that it reads. It's kind of crazy how it reads your eyeballs. So you have to be watching the road for the car to drive itself. If your eyes go down and you start texting, and then it senses that, it like hits an alert, and then it stops driving itself. Isn't that weird? But yeah, I rode in a car like that. It's crazy. It was like changing lanes.
Was it a
I remember
Tesla?
I was sitting there. I was sitting in shotgun, and I'm like, "What?"
Was it a Tesla or the Chevy?
It was an Escalade.
Oh.
It was an Escalade,
Okay.
and
Wouldn't
I
have
was
guessed that
like,
one. That's solid.
"Did this car just change lanes on its own?" And it's like, "Yeah, it did."
Was your friend that you were riding with just like a casual, like, oh, yeah, of course it did?
He's like, "Yeah,
yeah.
your car doesn't.
What a flex, man.
Your car doesn't drive itself."
I mean, is that not?
Oh,
that's-
you change lanes like manually? Pfft, what are you doing?
Do you think that's a better flex than how you can control your Traeger with Wi-Fi?
Car driving itself.
So you're not, where you can just be like, yeah, I'm out drinking. Oh, the Traeger's working. It's going
It's-
solid compared to like, yeah, no, I don't drive.
Now, as a guy who has, I don't have the Wi-Fi Traeger. Don't want the Wi-Fi Traeger.
Oh, I got you. I thought
More-
you did. My bad.
No, but I've seen it.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
friends that have it.
Yeah, I heard it's pretty sweet, man.
It is, but it also, like, to me, it's like that's more stuff that can go wrong. And then the Wi-Fi goes down. There's a whole, like, just give me a knob. I'm a knob and button guy. Okay, I like knobs and I like buttons. See, just turn my mic off and on with a button.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, cars that drive themselves, or as I recently called them, computer drivers. And apparently somebody out there thought that was funny and decided to send me a text.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, computer drivers, I'm out. Car drives itself, but human sits in seat. Yeah, I ride in that car. Because I've ridden in one of those cars, but I knew the person who was driving it. All right, that's going to do it for the big show. And a huge thank you to Mike Parker. Thanks to super producer Brenden. Thanks to all of you. We have got a Fancy Coffee Friday tomorrow as we wrap up the week here on 620 Rip City Radio.